Before we continue with the celebration, there's something everyone here needs to know.
The bride picked up the microphone. She wasn't supposed to speak yet. The toasts were scheduled for after the first dance, but Naomi Osei didn't wait for the schedule. She stood from the head table. She held the microphone in both hands, and the room noticed something before she said a single word. Her eyes had changed. 5 minutes ago, she was laughing. 5 minutes ago, she was the happiest woman in the room. And now she was standing with the microphone pressed against her chest and her jaw set and something burning behind her eyes that made 300 guests stop chewing at the same time. Kofi looked at her from the seat beside hers. His smile died, not slowly, all at once, because he knew that look. He had seen it only once before, and the last time he saw it, she had almost walked away from him for good. "I need to tell you all something," Naomi said. Her voice was steady, and the ballroom was silent. "Something about the man I married today, and something about the woman who made him." Kofi's hand moved toward her arm. "Naomi." She stepped away from his reach. One step. But that one step told the room everything. If you know what it feels like to watch someone you love become someone you don't recognize, stay with me. Subscribe right now and turn on that notification bell. And because what this bride is about to say will bring a room of 300 people to absolute silence, and it will break your heart. 26 years before that wedding, a woman landed at JFK Airport with a 2-year-old boy on her hip and $43 in her purse. Her name was Abena Asante. She was 24 years old. She had come from Kumasi, Ghana, on a one-way ticket purchased with money her mother had saved for 11 years. Her husband, Kwabena, had died 4 months before the flight. A construction accident in Accra. The scaffolding collapsed. He was 26. He left behind a wife, a son, and a dream that his boy would grow up in America. Abena kept the dream alive because it was the only thing of his she could carry. She landed in New York with no English, no job, no family, and no plan beyond one single promise. Her son would have a better life, whatever it cost, whatever she had to give up, whatever she had to become. Kofi would have everything his father never did. She found a room in the Bronx, a shared apartment with 3 other women, all immigrants, all working, all surviving. The room was 8 feet by 10 feet, one window that faced a brick wall, one mattress on the floor. She put Kofi on the mattress. She slept beside it on a folded blanket. She did this for 4 years until she could afford a bed frame from a second-hand store on 3rd Avenue. She worked 3 jobs. A morning shift folding laundry at a hotel on Lexington Avenue, afternoon shift cleaning offices in a building on West 34th Street, night shift stocking shelves at a grocery store in Harlem. She slept 4 hours a night, sometimes 3. She ate after Kofi ate. She wore 3 dresses in rotation, washed by hand every Sunday night and hung on the shower rod to dry. Her English came slowly, word by word, sentence by sentence, but her accent never left. It sat on every word she spoke like a fingerprint. Thick, unmistakable, Ghanaian. She didn't mind. Her accent was her mother's voice, her father's laugh, her husband's last words. She wore it like a ring she couldn't take off. By the time Kofi started first grade at PS 112 in the Bronx, Abena had mastered enough English to speak to his teachers. She showed up at every parent-teacher conference in one of her 3 dresses. She sat in the small plastic chairs designed for children and listened to everything they said about her son. He was bright. He was focused. He was reading 2 grades above his level. She walked home from those meetings with her chin up and tears running down her face, crying with joy, crying with exhaustion, crying because her husband wasn't there to see what his son was becoming. Kofi was everything, and everything costs everything. She sold her wedding ring when he was 14. And he needed new textbooks. The school didn't provide them for the advanced program. The books cost $87. She had 42 in the envelope she kept behind the refrigerator. She was $45 short. She looked at the thin gold band on her left hand. The ring Kwabena had put on her finger in a small church in Kumasi when she was 19 years old. The only piece of him she had left that she could hold. She took it off. She walked to a pawn shop on Fordham Road, and the man behind the counter offered her $50. She took it. She bought the books. She gave them to Kofi that evening. He said thank you. He didn't notice the ring was gone. He was 14. He had other things on his mind. She understood. She looked at her bare left hand that night after he fell asleep. She pressed her lips together. She didn't cry. She had already given this boy everything else. What was one more thing? But here's what she didn't know. And that missing ring would haunt this story. It would come back, not as a ring, but as a truth. And that truth would stop a wedding reception dead in its tracks. 26 years after JFK, 26 years of sacrifice. And the boy she carried on her hip was getting married. Kofi Asante, 28 years old, investment banker at a firm on Park Avenue, 6-figure salary, corner office, tailored suits, a watch that cost more than his mother made in a year folding laundry. And he spoke perfect English. No accent. He had erased every trace of the Bronx, every trace of Ghana, every trace of the woman who slept on a folded blanket for 4 years so he could have the mattress. He was marrying Naomi Osei, 27, beautiful, smart, daughter of Dr. Emmanuel Osei and Catherine Osei, a prominent Ghanaian-American family in Westchester. Naomi's father was a cardiologist. Her mother sat on 3 charity boards. They lived in a house with columns and a circular driveway. And they were everything Kofi wanted to be connected to. Everything he wanted the world to see when they looked at him. The wedding was at the Meridian, a luxury event venue in Lower Manhattan. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the East River. 300 guests, a 12-piece orchestra, flowers flown in from Ecuador. A 5-tier cake designed by a pastry chef who charged more for one cake than Abina earned in 2 months. Kofi paid for everything. And he wanted the world to see what he had become, what he had built, what he was. And he wanted to make sure nobody saw where he came from. The phone call happened 3 weeks before the wedding. Mama, Kofi, my boy, I've been sewing my dress. You should see it. It is blue. Your father loved blue. I want to look nice for... Mama, listen, I need to talk to you about the reception. Yes? There are going to be a lot of important people there. Partners from the firm, Naomi's family, and people from the board. I need everything to be right. Silence on the other end. The kind of silence that knows something bad is coming before the words arrive. I want you to come. Of course I want you to come. But during the reception, I think it would be better if you stayed in the back, the kitchen area, just during dinner and the toasts. I'll come get you after. More silence. Then Abina's voice. Quiet. You want me to sit in the kitchen? It's not like that, Mama. It's just, the seating arrangement is complicated. There are clients, there are protocols. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. I would not be uncomfortable, Kofi. I would be with my son. Mama, please, just this once. It's one evening. I'll come get you after the toasts, I promise. Are you ashamed of me? The question landed in the silence between them like a stone dropped in still water. Kofi closed his eyes. No, Mama, I'm not ashamed. He was lying. They both knew it. She could hear it in his voice the same way she could hear rain coming before the first drop fell. A mother always knows. A mother always hears the lie underneath the words. And a mother who has given everything, her sleep, her ring, her body, her years, a mother who has given everything hears it louder than anyone. Okay, Kofi, she said. I will sit in the kitchen. She hung up. She looked at the blue dress hanging on her closet door, the dress she had been sewing for 3 weeks, by hand. And every stitch. She had pricked her fingers so many times the thimble had a permanent indent. She had picked the fabric because it was the color of the sky in Kumasi, the color Kwabena wore on their wedding day. She sat on the edge of her bed in the Bronx apartment she still lived in. The same building, a different unit now, a one-bedroom instead of the shared room, but the same building, the same neighborhood, the same woman, just older, just more tired, just more alone. She folded her hands in her lap, the same way she had folded them 1,000 times, when she was waiting for the next shift, when she was waiting for Kofi's grades, when she was waiting for anything good to arrive. Hands folded, patient, still. She would sit in the kitchen, because that's what mothers do. They accept the unacceptable because the alternative is losing their child entirely. And losing Kofi, even this version of Kofi, the one who was ashamed of her, was worse than any kitchen. If you're feeling what I'm feeling right now, drop a like. Tell me in the comments, would you have agreed to sit in that kitchen? And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Because what happens at this wedding is going to shake you to your core. Grace Asante knew. Kofi's younger sister, 24. She was the one who inherited their mother's spine and their father's stubbornness. She worked as a social worker in Brooklyn. She wore her accent like armor. She had never once tried to erase where she came from. She found out about the kitchen arrangement 2 days before the wedding. She called Kofi. "Tell me it's not true. Grace, tell me you did not ask our mother, the woman who sold her wedding ring so you could buy textbooks, to sit in the kitchen at your wedding. You don't understand the situation. I understand perfectly. You're ashamed of the woman who made you. You're ashamed of her accent, her dress, her hands. The hands that scrubbed floors so you could sit in a corner office. You want your fancy friends and your fancy in-laws to think you came from nowhere, that you built yourself, that no one carried you. But someone did carry you, Kofi. She carried you on her hip through JFK Airport with $43. She carried you through the Bronx on 4 hours of sleep. She carried you through every winter in a coat with no lining so you could have the warm one. Grace, enough. It will never be enough, because what you're doing is not enough. It is not enough to invite her and hide her. That is worse than not inviting her at all. At least if you didn't invite her, she could pretend it was logistics. But you're putting her in the kitchen, Kofi. The kitchen. While you stand at the head table and pretend she doesn't exist, that is cruelty, and you learned it nowhere, because Mama never taught you that. Kofi hung up. He didn't call back. Grace didn't either. On the morning of the wedding, Grace went to their mother's apartment in the Bronx. She found Abina pressing the blue dress with an iron. The apartment smelled like starch and palm oil and something sweet she was cooking on the stove for no one. She was humming. A hymn. One of the old ones from Kumasi. The kind that sounds like it was written for women who carry the world and never complain about the weight. "Mama, don't go." Abena looked at her. "He is my son, Grace. He's making you sit in the kitchen. I know where I am sitting. Then why are you going?" Abena set the iron down. She smoothed the blue fabric with her hand. Her fingers were rough, thick at the knuckles. The hands of a woman who had folded 10,000 hotel sheets and scrubbed 10,000 office floors. "Because when you have a child," she said, "you don't stop being their mother because they stop being your child. I was his mother when he was 2 years old on my hip at the airport. I will be his mother in the kitchen at his wedding. The room does not change who I am, only who he is." Grace stared at her. Then she hugged her. Hard. The way you hug someone who is walking into something you cannot protect them from. "I will be there," Grace said, "and I will not sit in the kitchen." "I know you won't." Abena smiled. "You are your father's daughter." The wedding ceremony was beautiful. And the Meridian's main hall, floor-to-ceiling windows, the late afternoon sun pouring golden light across 300 guests, orchids and white roses everywhere. The 12-piece orchestra played something soft and aching as Naomi walked down the aisle. Kofi stood at the altar in a custom black tuxedo. He looked like a magazine cover, polished, perfect, the kind of man who makes a room believe he was born into this. Abena sat in the third row, left side. She wore her blue dress, and the one she sewed by hand. It was simple, cotton, no designer label, no beadwork, just clean blue fabric and small pearl buttons she had found at a fabric store on Fordham Road. Her hair was pulled back in a neat wrap. She wore no jewelry. Her left hand was bare where the ring used to be. She watched her son get married with tears running down her face. Not tears of joy, not tears of sadness, something in between. And the kind of tears that come when you see the person you built standing at the altar and you're proud of what they became, but you're grieving who they used to be. After the ceremony, the guests moved to the reception ballroom. The tables were set. The flowers were arranged. The orchestra shifted to celebration. 300 people found their seats, checked their place cards, and settled in. Abena looked for her name. She checked the tables near the dance floor. She checked the tables along the windows. She checked the tables in the back. Her name was not on any table. Grace found her standing by the far wall, holding her clutch purse with both hands. "Your seat is inside, Mama. Come with me." Kofi said, "I know what Kofi said. Come with me." Grace took her mother's hand and led her through a service corridor behind the ballroom, through a set of double doors, into the kitchen. It was bright, fluorescent, stainless steel everywhere. The caterers in white coats moved between stations, plating lamb chops and asparagus and risotto. Steam rose from industrial pots. The noise was mechanical, efficient. This was not a room for guests. This was a room for workers. In the corner, near the back exit, a single folding chair had been placed beside a small utility table. A plate of food sat on the table, the same food being served in the ballroom, but the plate was plastic. The fork was plastic. The napkin was paper. 300 guests ate on fine china with silver forks and linen napkins. The mother of the groom ate on plastic in the corner of the kitchen. Grace's jaw tightened so hard the muscles in her neck flexed. "Mama, you don't have to do this." Abena sat down. She smoothed her blue dress. She placed her clutch purse in her lap. She picked up the plastic fork. "He is my son, Grace. This is not love, Mama. This is abuse. No, this is a mother keeping her promise. I promised his father I would give Kofi everything. I didn't say only the easy things. I said everything. This is part of everything." Grace knelt beside her. She took her mother's rough hand in both of hers. "You deserve the head table. I deserve my son. That is all I have ever wanted. And if my son needs me in the kitchen today, then the kitchen is where I will be." Grace stood up. She kissed her mother's forehead. She walked out of the kitchen. She went back to the ballroom. As she sat at her assigned table, she did not eat. She could not eat. Not while her mother sat on a folding chair behind a steel door eating off plastic. The reception was moving. Dinner was served. Toasts were beginning. Charles Whitmore, the best man, stood with a champagne glass and told 3 minutes of rehearsed jokes about Kofi's work ethic and his obsession with Italian shoes. The room laughed. Kofi laughed. Naomi laughed. Everything was perfect. Then Naomi leaned to Kofi. Where is your mother? I haven't seen her since the ceremony." Kofi adjusted his cufflink. "She wasn't feeling well. She's resting in one of the back rooms." "Is she okay? Should I check on her?" "She's fine. She just needs quiet. She'll come out later." Naomi studied his face. Something flickered. She couldn't name it. But it was there. The same thing Grace heard on the phone. The same thing Abena heard through the receiver. The lie that lives underneath the right words. "And I'm going to check on her," Naomi said. "Naomi, she's about to be my mother too. I'm going to check on her." She stood from the head table. She smoothed her wedding dress, a stunning white gown with an open back and a cathedral train that had been bustled for the reception. She walked across the ballroom. 300 pairs of eyes followed her briefly and then returned to their conversations. She checked the side rooms. Empty. She checked the bridal suite. Empty. She asked a staff member. "Excuse me, have you seen an older woman? Blue dress? She's the groom's mother." The staff member hesitated, then pointed. "Kitchen, through there." Naomi pushed through the service corridor doors. The fluorescent light hit her, the steam, the noise, the stainless steel. She walked past the plating stations, past the dishwasher, past the ovens, and she found Abina, sitting in the corner, on a folding chair, at a utility table, and eating off a plastic plate with a plastic fork, alone, in the kitchen, at her son's wedding. Naomi stopped. She stood there for 5 full seconds without breathing. The kitchen staff moved around her. Trays passed, pots clanged. But Naomi didn't hear any of it. She was looking at the woman who raised the man she had just married. The woman in the blue dress who sewed every stitch by hand. The woman eating off plastic while 300 guests ate off china. "Mrs. Asante?" Abena looked up. "At the party." "Why are you in the kitchen?" "The party." "Why are you in the kitchen?" I was not feeling well. Kofi said I should." "Mrs. Asante." Naomi knelt down, in her wedding dress, on the kitchen floor. She took Abena's rough hands in her smooth ones. "Why are you really in the kitchen?" Abena looked at her, and the lie she had been prepared to tell dissolved in Naomi's eyes. Kofi asked me to sit here during the reception. He said it would be better." Naomi closed her eyes. She held Abena's hands tighter, her jaw set. When she opened her eyes, something had changed, something permanent. How long have you been sitting here?" "Since the reception started." 45 minutes. "Yes. You've been sitting in this kitchen for 45 minutes, while your son sits at the head table." "Yes." Naomi stood. She still held Abena's hands. She lifted the old woman gently from the folding chair. She looked at her blue dress, the hand-stitched fabric, the pearl buttons from Fordham Road, the bare left hand. "Mrs. Asante, where is your wedding ring?" Abena looked at her bare hand, her lips pressed together. "I sold it, a long time ago, to buy Kofi's school books." Naomi's face changed, not crumbled, not collapsed, hardened, the way steel hardens, the way a decision finalizes, the way a woman who has just learned the truth decides what she is going to do with it. "Come with me." "Naomi, please, don't cause trouble. This is your day. This is our day, yours and mine. Come with me." She took Abena's hand. She led her out of the kitchen, through the service corridor, through the double doors, into the ballroom, 300 guests, a 12-piece orchestra, 5-tier cake, floor-to-ceiling windows with the Manhattan skyline, and a bride walking through the middle of it all, holding the hand of an old woman in a blue cotton dress. Heads turned. Conversations paused. Champagne glasses stopped mid-air. The orchestra trailed off, instrument by instrument, until the room was quiet. Kofi saw them. And his glass was in his hand, his smile was in place. And then both fell. The glass hit the tablecloth and tipped. Champagne spilled across the white linen. He didn't notice. He was looking at Naomi's face, and at his mother's hand in hers. Naomi walked to the head table. She pulled out the empty chair beside Kofi, the chair assigned to the maid of honor who had stepped away. She seated Abena in it, at the head table, beside her son. Then she picked up the microphone. I need to tell you all something. Something about the man I married today, and something about the woman who made him." The room went dead silent. 300 people. Not a fork, not a whisper, not a breath. Most of you know Kofi as a brilliant man, a successful man, A man who built himself from nothing. That's the story he tells. And it's a beautiful story. But it's not the whole story. Because Kofi didn't build himself from nothing. He was built by someone. And that someone is sitting right here. She gestured to Abena. Every eye in the room moved to the old woman in the blue dress. This is Abena Asante. She landed at JFK Airport 26 years ago with $43 and a 2-year-old boy on her hip. Her husband had died 4 months before. She had no family in America, no job, no English. She had one thing, a promise, that her son would have a better life. Naomi's voice was steady, but her eyes were burning. She worked 3 jobs. She slept 4 hours a night. She slept on a folded blanket on the floor so her son could have the mattress. She wore 3 dresses in rotation for years. She sold her wedding ring, the only thing she had left from her husband, to buy Kofi's school books. She scrubbed floors. She folded hotel sheets. She cleaned offices at midnight. She did this for 26 years. And tonight, at his wedding, the man she built asked her to sit in the kitchen. A gasp moved through the room like wind through tall grass, low, sharp, spreading from table to table. Kofi's face was white. His hands were flat on the tablecloth. He was staring at the spilled champagne soaking into the linen. He could not look up. I found her 5 minutes ago, sitting on a folding chair in the corner of the kitchen, eating off a plastic plate, while 300 of you ate off china, while a 12-piece orchestra played, while a 5-tier cake waited to be cut. His mother, the woman who gave him everything, was in the kitchen, because he was ashamed of her dress, her accent, her hands. Naomi turned to Kofi. Her voice dropped. Quiet. But in the silence of that ballroom, every syllable carried to every corner. Look at her, Kofi. He didn't move. Look at your mother. He raised his eyes. He looked at Abena. She was sitting in the chair Naomi had given her, and her hands were folded in her lap, the same way they were folded in the kitchen, the same way they were folded in the Bronx apartment, the same way they were folded at JFK Airport 26 years ago. She was not angry. She was not crying. She was looking at her son with an expression that only a mother can wear, an expression that holds love and disappointment in the same breath, an expression that says, I would do it all again, even though you did this to me. Her hands, Naomi said. So look at her hands. Those hands folded hotel sheets at 5 in the morning so you could sleep until 7. Those hands scrubbed floors so you could walk on clean ones. Those hands sold a wedding ring so you could read textbooks. Those hands sewed that blue dress by hand, every stitch, because she wanted to look nice for her son's wedding, and you put those hands in the kitchen. Tears were falling across the room. Not just women, men. Grace sat at her table with tears. Grace sat at her table with tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling. The same smile Jasmine wore in a Houston restaurant. The smile of someone watching justice arrive exactly on time. Naomi set the microphone on the table. She turned to Abena. She knelt, in her white wedding dress. On the ballroom floor, in front of 300 people, she took the old woman's rough hands. I didn't marry Kofi today. I married into your family. And in my family, in our family, the mother sits at the head of the table. Always. That is not negotiable. Not today. Not any day after this. She slid a ring onto Abena's bare left hand. A gold band. Simple. Thin. Almost identical to the one Abena had sold at the pawn shop on Fordham Road 14 years ago. I had this made for you, Naomi whispered. Grace told me the story. Your ring, the pawn shop, the textbooks. I wanted you to have one again. Not to replace what you lost. Nothing can replace that. But so your hand isn't bare anymore. You've carried enough with bare hands. Abena looked at the ring. She looked at her hand. She looked at Naomi. And for the first time that evening, she broke. Not loudly, not dramatically. She simply closed her eyes and let the tears come. And the kind of tears she had not allowed herself in 26 years. The tears of a woman who finally, after everything she gave, received something back. She pulled Naomi into her arms. She held her, the old blue cotton dress against the white wedding gown, rough hands against smooth shoulders. Two women, two generations, holding each other in front of a room that could barely breathe. Kofi sat in his chair. He had not moved. He had not spoken. His face was wet. His hands were shaking, and the champagne stain on the tablecloth had spread. He looked at his mother being held by his wife, and something inside him cracked open. Not the polished surface, not the accent he had erased, not the image he had built. Something deeper, something underneath all of it. The small boy from the Bronx who used to fall asleep on a mattress while his mother lay on a folded blanket beside him. Mama. His voice broke on the word, cracked right down the middle, 2 syllables. And the only word he had ever spoken with his real accent. The accent he had buried. The accent that lived in his mother's voice and his sister's pride and his father's memory. It came back in that one word. Mama. The way he used to say it when he was small, before he learned to be ashamed. Mama, I'm sorry. Abena looked at him. Her son. The baby she carried through JFK. The boy she fed before she ate. The teenager whose books cost her wedding ring. The man who put her in the kitchen. She reached across the table. She took his hand. You are my son, she said. You have always been my son. In the corner office and in the kitchen, at the head table and on the folded blanket. You are mine, and I am yours. That is not something you can seat in a different room. That is not something you can hide. It follows you everywhere, because it is who you are. Kofi stood up. He walked around the table. He knelt beside his mother. He wrapped his arms around her. He held her the way he hadn't held her since he was a child, with his whole body, with his whole weight, like she was the only solid thing in the world. 300 people watched, 300 people cried, and 300 people understood something they would carry for the rest of their lives. The people who carry you don't always look like the destination. Sometimes they look like the journey. They look like 3 dresses in rotation. They look like 4 hours of sleep. As someone who carried you, do not put them someone who carried you. Do not put them in the kitchen. Do not hide them from the life they built for you. Do not erase the accent that sang you to sleep. Do not be ashamed of the hands that held you up. Because one day, someone will kneel in front of 300 people and tell the truth, and the kitchen door will open. I cannot hide the people who made you. You cannot hide the people who made you. You can only honor them or betray them. And betrayal has a sound. It sounds like a folding chair scraping a kitchen floor at your own son's wedding. If this story reached something inside you tonight, something deep, something you didn't expect, subscribe. Hit that bell. Because the next story isn't about shame. It's about something darker. And the person who walks through the door doesn't offer forgiveness. They offer a reckoning. Fate and folktales, where every villain falls, and the humble always rise.